We do know who will be at Wembley because Sheffield Eagles beat York 28-18 and Wakefield came from behind to beat Bradford 40 points to 14 to set up a rematch of the 1992 Yorkshire Cup final, a final which Mark Aston played in, of course. And it will be a final coached by two Sheffield Hall of Famers. Was Darpel their first ever signing, I think?
Well, it depends. I think Mark Gamson was their first, as in literally the first person to put pen to paper, but the one who arguably is the talisman that they built the team around, along with Mark Aston, was Darryl Pan.
There's quite a lot of history that you can go between those two men, let alone the clubs themselves going into the 1895 final. So it's going to be interesting.
I think the great thing for that is to see what the crowd will be, because we said last week that there's growing importance in this competition, and that for clubs outside of Super League, particularly in the IMG era, who may well have to wait their turn to get points in other areas than just performances on the field, what they will get is the opportunity to go to Wembley. And the Bradford Wakefield game was quite rightly built up as being the return to the big stage of one of these teams. Wakefield are going for the first time since 1979, and we actually saw pictures today on social media of people queuing to get their tickets.
They do know they won't sell out. They do know that, don't they?
Going online, not downloading an e-ticket, they queue to, and that shows what it means to the people of Wakefield. I suspect that not only will this be the biggest 1895 crowd, but it could be close to 10,000. And you're talking about then an event where, if they do get there and watch the men's and women's games beforehand, we'll get a lot nearer to selling out Wembley, and people will have to stop saying, oh, we have to move it, or it's outlived it's nostalgia and romance. If you get 7,000 or 8,000 Wakefield fans there, and two or three maybe supporting Sheffield, and they're there to watch the men's cup final, and possibly, if the bars are open long enough, the women's as well, then they'll be 65,000 guaranteed at Wembley this year, maybe touching 70, which is great for the game.
I have seen people say, and it's expensive to go to London, I know that, but I've seen people saying, well, they should play the final in the north. No, because if you played the 1895 Cup final in Hull, who cares? It's all about Wembley. It's always been all about Wembley, because it's about selling tickets and get some more bums on seats in the stadium once we've hired it for the day.
People are queuing up because of the sense of occasion, and you don't get if you're going back to somewhere after 40 odd years, it's not the same if you keep moving the final around. You're not going back anywhere. Paul Cook was talking in his column previewing the 1895 semi-finals in the magazine about one of the regrets he's got is not that he won the Challenge Cup. It's an amazing memory, but it was at the Millennium Stadium in Wales, and he never got to play at Wembley. And because he's a traditionalist and he loves the sport and he loves what that competition stands for, he wanted to say he played at Wembley. So don't move it anywhere other than Wembley.
Top two teams in the Championship as well going into that game as well at the moment, and they may well be going into that game as well. So I'm looking forward to all the history being dredged up over that fixture, which is shame. Wakefield haven't been there since 1979. Sheffield Eagles didn't exist in 1979. Just to put some context on that, and obviously may not have existed going into this one. And the story of that club is the sheer bloody mindedness of Mark Aston and the people backing it, that they didn't roll over and die when the merger came around in 2000, and that they still exist and indeed won the cup a few years ago. Who knows? They may well win it again at Wembley in less than a month's time. I don't know if people were queuing up in Sheffield. I think people in Sheffield realise the internet exists.
Yeah.
Wakefield, I don't know what we are, but we've got a kit out. We've got a new kit out for it, so that's good.
Well, I saw your comment. What would have happened if you'd have lost to Bradford when
the shadowy cabal of the people who tweet on the 4020 live account. Yeah. There was something else about that game that was it. Yeah. It's quite funny because obviously everyone in Wakefield, Matt Ellis, he walks on water at the minute, and I'm not going to say he doesn't or not. But the amusing thing is, of course, had Mr. Carter not been involved, and those around in the club may not have existed, but also if the club hadn't been relegated last year, if they hadn't built a stand and put money into players, say, the chances of getting to Wembley this year would not quite have been the same.
No, 100%, 100%. And that, you know, they're not yet nailed on a Super League place by their gradings rating. They've certainly moved a long way down that road to ensure that they will, because we know that, as we said at the beginning of the programme, London are not going to be there. Therefore, somebody has to take their place. You would say where we sit at the moment with everything they're doing. Matt Ellis is not lucky to come into that, but you know, this could have been starting a year later, in which case they wouldn't have had enough points to necessarily go up at the end of this season. Then you know, I think it's a great story of both clubs, and you would hope that whoever wins, they're going to build on the back of it, because that hasn't happened enough in the past. That you know, Sheffield won the Challenge Cup in '98, and you know, a year later they were forced into a merger that they didn't want because they weren't strong enough to stand up to that. They probably didn't at that time, because of the resource that they had, do quite enough to, you know, cement their work in the local community to build up quickly on the back of that, which is very hard when you're trying to deal with a sport that, you know, a lot of people in the city haven't even heard of. So let's hope that whether it's Wakefield or Sheffield, you may have a preference. I possibly couldn't comment on that. That they get value out of winning the 1895 Cup, and what we see next year is even more clubs saying, my grading might not get me promoted, but what I need is a doubt, like what those two clubs have had. I need, you know, the Swinton fans need to take their supporters, you know, break the Holy Grail and you know, go to Wembley, and you know, the same for Dewsbury or whoever, Halifax. You know, there's so many great clubs with history and tradition out there, or even a new club. You know, why shouldn't Cornwall, who this weekend,
well, yes,
arguably had their, you know, one of their great results, winning at Midlands Hurricanes. Why shouldn't they say, look, if we, you know, if we set a course for Wembley, that could be a massive boost for what we're trying to do in all the other parts of our business.
it's a great sporting city, Sheffield, of course. Just had the snooker there. Unfortunately, the football teams are rubbish, but the ice hockey team won their treble this year. They've had the trophies in the City Hall. Maybe the 1895 Cup will be there as well. Or maybe it will be an open-top bus tour around Wakefield. I don't know how much of Wakefield you can get around in an open-top bus. The rare is a Wakefield I want to go around in an open-top bus. And I can say that because I'm from here. Maybe Jay McDonald will come back. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. But now I've thought about it. The people who want David Fafita to lead out the team at Wembley, you're idiots. You are idiots, and I'm not afraid to say that. I don't care anymore. I've got to say things, because you know, you can't bottle things up. That's what they tell you.
Sticking in the corporate, fine, but don't get him to lead the team. This team and this club is not the club that he played for.
However, if you said to me, someone from the 60s when we were quite good, then yeah, they can be involved. That's fine. But play with 1-0. Play 1-0.
Yeah, Jess Dimitri could come over.
Yeah, not doing that. We could get the whole job while he's at it.